Most men don't feel broken after 40, they just feel off. Lower energy, worse sleep, brain fog. And instead of getting answers, you're told to take testosterone, a whole bunch of supplements, and the next fix. In this episode, nurse practitioner Hope Rabel explains why testosterone isn't often the problem, and why most men skip out on the fundamentals that actually make them feel better. I'm Rupesh Patel, and this is Feel Great After 40, a podcast that helps men 40 to 65 fix everyday health problems so that they can stay active, think clearly, and feel great in their own skin. Hope, welcome to Feel Great After 40. I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. I've worked with you for many years, and there isn't a guest that I would have thought of having right from the beginning to kind of set the stage for folks, for men who don't even know how to get started into looking into their health. I think that you're like the perfect guest to get started. So welcome to Feel Great After 40. I'm excited to have this more casual conversation with you, and hopefully you're having a good day today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So far, the day's been good. Got my workout in and I'm ready to go.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
Maybe let people know about you a little bit because, you're a nurse practitioner by trade, but tell us about your practice and the kind of people that you typically see.
Yeah, so I am a nurse practitioner. I'm a family all ages nurse practitioner, which typically in Alberta translates to being a primary care nurse practitioner. And so when I became an NP, because I was working in the emergency room as an RN, and I was just seeing so much like disability and illness that is so preventable. And so to me, I'm like, we are doing something wrong here. Like something is missing. And so I decided to become a nurse practitioner to hopefully make a change in that system. And then when I became an NP, I had one of my nurse practitioner instructors was she did a lot of hormone replacement for men and women.
Okay. And
I saw how she did things and I was like, this is amazing. This is like a different level of healthcare that I've never seen before. And so after that, I decided I wanted to do that. And then, so I got my training in hormones and I started working with her. And I was seeing that people were having such drastic differences in how they would respond to hormone replacement therapy. So some people would respond great. It was just what they needed. They feel amazing. Other people, it was like we could do all the things and things weren't really changing for them. And so I was like, there is much more to this than just hormones. And so thereafter, I started looking into like integrative healthcare, functional medicine, and what those are is sort of looking at the root cause of illness and disease and treating that instead versus just, giving somebody a medication, giving somebody a supplement, giving somebody a Band-Aid that may not necessarily be effective. So my primary focus in my practice is on identifying issues earlier, starting with the fundamentals first, like diet, sleep, exercise, mental health, physical, emotional, spiritual health, all of those things, and using evidence-based medicine to help people live better lives.
Now, can you treat as a nurse practitioner both, like you can prescribe medications, but you could also, I guess, prescribe like natural supplements, that sort of thing? Like you can do both, or is it one or the other?
Yes. As long as I have training in that. Okay. So I have taken advanced training in what's called functional medicine through the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is sort of they're the pioneers of functional medicine in the world. So I took advanced training through them to understand like how do supplements interact with medications, contraindications to recommending supplements, but really we know supplements aren't very well regulated. You can go into a health food store and an untrained person can tell you exactly, like, you should take this, I think, right? So 100%. I find that for me, I'm very picky about what I recommend. I really like to see robust sort of like testing and evidence behind the brands that I recommend typically. But there are some where you can get away with buying cheaper things.
And it still could have some sort of positive effect. For
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you initially working with women only, or were you, working with both men and women? How did that start for you?
Yeah, so the majority of the people that I work with are women.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are quite a few men coming on. And
Mm.
particularly it's wives bringing their husbands to us
Okay.
frequently. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're like, you know what? I love what you do.
Yeah.
My husband's interested too. Would you see him as well? And there's often this misconception that hormone replacement or functional medicine is only for women, but it's not. We work with men as well.
What's the reception been like when those women bring their husbands? Are the men open to it? Are they yeah, what's that reception been?
I'd say it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Mm.
Sometimes you meet a little bit of apprehension at first because I'm asking for big things. I'm
Yeah.
not just saying, here's a testosterone prescription and you'll be all better. No, I'm saying, like, how do you sleep? How much time and effort are you putting into your sleep? What are your sleep habits? What are you eating? How's your stress?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, even though these are such basic, fundamental, simple things, they're pretty hard to change our habits at times.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the things that you see men come to you, like what are the main concerns that you're having to deal with them on right from the beginning?
I would say energy.
Energy.
That is
Yeah.
probably one of the most frequent complaints we get from men is just low energy or fatigue.
Like throughout the day when they wake up, is there anything specific or?
Yeah, just feeling like they're not functioning as high of capacity as they used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a typical age of men that you're seeing more so come to you? Are they in their 30s, 40s, 50s? Is it kind of all over the place?
It's a variety,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
I do find men in their 20s are really like well informed about their health, like with podcasts and just all of the information that's out there, on social media and things like that. Like men are starting much earlier. So I do feel like we are getting a large portion of men even in their 20s and 30s. But there are quite a few men coming in their 40s and 50s as well. Not seeing too many in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those men who come in, like, and they're in their 20s, they feel like they've listened to, different media and podcasts and things like that. What's your challenge with those folks? Like, is it less of a challenge because they're coming in probably fairly well educated, or are you having to correct them on things? And what's like the thing that they're probably very gung ho about that they're often wanting to talk to you about?
Testosterone replacement.
That's what I figured. I figured
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's so much information on there about
Yeah.
social media and a lot of, like, we could call it bro science, right?
Yeah.
Like people who are testing anabolic steroids that they buy on the internet on themselves.
Yeah.
And they're doing estrogen blockers and peptides and all of these things that they're just buying online because a podcaster said so.
Right.
And that's really hard because they're like, well, the podcaster said I should do this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but we are missing basic points here. Like,
Yeah.
if you're only sleeping 4 hours a night, I'm sorry, these things may work in the beginning. They may make you feel great when you first start them, but this isn't going to last.
So are you seeing those who want like TRT? Are you seeing those mostly men in their 20s, 30s, 40s? Where does that sort of start?
All of them. All of
Really?
them. It's quite frequently that's what they come to because they want testosterone testing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, which we're absolutely open to do
Yeah.
if the signs point in that direction. But I often have to have conversations with men like testosterone is for life. So there is a point of no return with testosterone replacement therapy.
Right.
You
Yeah.
start it, you are on it forever. So you need to, like, don't take this decision lightly.
Forever. So like if you're on TRT, uh, so what happens if you do come off of it at some point? You're feeling good and you feel like you want to, bring it down. Yeah, like what would to help people? Maybe I'm sure people are interested to knowing that because I'm not sure if everyone knows that you got to be on it for life. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, that's often, so we do get some men in their 20s who have dabbled in, or even 30s and 40s, who have dabbled in anabolic steroids and then find they just can't recover from it. And that's the problem, is nobody tells them that when you're on testosterone replacement, it takes over your body's natural production and can cause a shrinkage of the testicles, which help to produce testosterone. And so if those shrink, your body does not produce it as well. And there is a time frame where men can go off of it and potentially recover back to the same level.
Right.
We don't know what that time frame is. Like, we don't have good data to say. So I always just tell men, like, we don't know. So this is something that if you decide to make this decision, like, I would think, within the 3 months to a year, there's definitely, it could be reversible. But it also depends on how it's done, the levels that you're taking. Sometimes, like, the anabolic steroid levels are so high, or what we would call super physiologic, that they do damage much faster, in my opinion.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that men in their 20s, I guess if they have been exposed to anabolic steroids, then but if you're just like the average 20-year-old male or in their 20s, do you generally see any need for TRT at that point? I mean, I know every case is individual, but yeah, I think from what I've learned from you over the past is usually you start to see a drop in testosterone in your maybe late 30s, 40s, that sort of thing, and it's maybe a conversation of having it then. But are there cases for 20-year-olds to even explore this? If they're just like the average 20-year-old, they haven't dabbled in steroids, is there a case for TRT for them as well?
There are some men who are hypogonadal.
Okay. What does that mean? What does that mean for,
Yeah, that means that their body just doesn't produce it very well on their own.
Got it. Okay.
But this is a very small percentage of the population. Oftentimes, if I see low T in men in their 20s and 30s, it's like, okay, what are we doing wrong? And frequently, like, alcohol use is a big contributing factor to low T. Low sleep quality, also like low nutrient levels. All of these things contribute to why testosterone would be suboptimal. So I try to work with the men on those things first. Yes.
And what is it about alcohol that can drop your testosterone levels?
Yeah, so alcohol is, of course, processed in the liver. And the liver also processes testosterone. But essentially, like I know there were studies that said, some degree of alcohol is good for you. Yeah. But we're recanting that. Alcohol is essentially toxins. Now, I'm not saying that you should never drink ever. I'm just saying that alcohol in high amounts is a prime contributor to why men don't have optimal testosterone levels.
And would this be chronic consumption of alcohol, frequent consumption of alcohol? Like, again, like if somebody just happens to have a bent night one night, that I imagine that's probably not going to have long-term consequences on their testosterone, but this is like weekly frequent drinking, excessive drinking kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it works on a bunch of different levels. So alcohol can do some damage to the gut, which makes you not absorb the nutrients needed in order to produce testosterone. It can also affect your sleep quality, which, again, affects your testosterone production. And then, yes, liver. Liver is very involved in the feedback loop of testosterone production.
Yeah. Men in their like late 30s, 40s, what are they coming to you with? Is it still that? Or is that their main primary concern? Are there now other things that are coming on the radar?
Yeah, so I would say, well, even some men in their 20s as well, digestive health. That's another thing that we are seeing a little bit more of, which I love.
Gut health and
gut health.
Like
yes, I'm a gut health nerd. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Because in functional medicine, we do believe that dysfunction begins in the gut. So that's always where I try to start with people if they're open. But it's not easy. Again, it's eliminating inflammatory foods, which, makes up some people's primary diet.
You're talking about dairy and gluten and things like that? Or
yes, processed foods.
Yeah, processed foods, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I am getting quite a few for gut health. Like they've had digestive dysfunction their whole lives and they're realizing that maybe it's not normal. So that's another thing that I am seeing men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s for.
Okay. And then if you start to go into 40s, 50s, what are those men? I know you're saying you're not seeing as many 60s, but 40s to 50s, like what are they starting to be concerned about?
Starting to look at preventative measures
Yeah.
for like cardiovascular health, for brain health. They'll say, this is what my father's health looked like, and I don't want to go there. How do I prevent this?
How does your approach in terms of the way you're practicing with men as they're in their 30s, has that changed as they start to age into late 40s, 50s? What's your attention kind of going towards?
You know what? Honestly, it's all the same.
Is
I
it?
do. I try to focus on the fundamentals
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because it like what you do in your 20s affects how you're going to feel in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond. And same for all those ages. So yeah, I actually like to get men and women younger because if you can make positive changes younger, it has a significant impact over the long.
So what do you say to men who are in their, and I imagine there are some men who are like, oh, I wish I could go back to my 20s and redo things. But here they are. They're in their late 30s, they're in their 40s, they've had a couple of kids. They just want to feel good again about, their life. Where do they even start? Like, how do they even start to assess their health? Because I think that's a concern for men is they want to get moving. They don't know if they should just go to their GP and do their regular physical. Does that give them enough information? Do they need more? Do they need to buy all these fancy tests online? Like, I think it's a really confusing time for, I mean, not just men of that age, for everybody. But I just think of people I know who have no health background, and we're just like, well, I probably should just, go exercise and eat the way I think I should be eating, and everything should be fine. And maybe you make some progress there, right? But if you were to start with them, where do you start in terms of assessing their health?
Well, I want to say it's never too late. It is never, ever, ever too late because our bodies are so adaptive and resilient.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can start in your 60s, you can start in your 70s. It does not matter. We can work with wherever you are.
Hmm.
I do think, yeah, having an assessment from either a GP or an NP is a great starting place. And sometimes you will get the data that you want, sometimes you don't. We run a very comprehensive panel. Some GPs do, some don't. Same with NPs. Some
Hmm.
NPs do, some NPs don't. But I don't think that's completely necessary. It's helpful for us, and I do find it's a great motivator to see like where you started and to see the positive changes over time. But is it absolutely a necessity? No. Where I would start with every single person on this earth is sleep.
Hmm.
Sleep is one of my favorite topics. If you are not sleeping, nothing functions right.
Okay, so this person, like, start with assessing the state of your sleep.
Exactly.
So what are the kind of questions that you would ask?
Yeah, so I do ask people like, do you have any difficulties with sleep?
Hmm.
Either like falling asleep, staying asleep.
Hmm.
A very common complaint that I get from men is like waking too early. So they will
Hmm.
wake at, between 4 and 5 a.m. and they just can't get back to sleep, so they just get up.
Hmm.
And so I will often say, like, how can we extend that sleep? Or what are the habits that you're doing before bedtime? Are you, taking pre-workout at 6 p.m. and going to the gym or, men in hockey leagues, late night hockey leagues.
Hmm.
Again, these things, it's very important to get like your 8 hours of sleep. And if you're struggling with that, sometimes we get stuck in these unhelpful patterns. Like your body gets stuck, like, oh, 5 a.m. is my wake up time. So what we do is we try to disrupt this by changing, bedtime habits. as well as potentially adding some targeted supplements if need be, even medications if it's really severe. But what I will often start with is supplements first, lifestyle or sleep habit changes first, and then if need be, we will add some sleep support.
As part of those sleep habits, is hydration a part of it? Because, men wake up to have to go pee, and that
Yes.
can be very disruptive. As much as you have the full intention to go back to sleep, sometimes it's game over and you're not going back to sleep. So is that part of the sort of the habits that you look at, or?
Yes, yes. Talking about hydration and
Yeah.
trying to get your hydration earlier in the day if
Yeah.
possible. Trying to avoid, that 2 hours before bedtime. But also, that's another thing. Like, if you are waking up to pee in the night and you're not drinking a lot of water in the evening, that's also something we need to talk about and consider.
Yeah. How do you define sort of high quality sleep? You talked about length of sleep, like 7-8 hours kind of thing. But what are some other cues or markers that men should maybe observe, whether that can be defined as sort of good quality sleep?
Yeah, so waking in the morning feeling rested,
Yeah.
energized, that can be helpful, but not everybody's built that way.
Mm-hmm.
We've got morning people, we've got night owls.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it's going to be. But also like noticing your energy levels throughout the day. So when we talk about the cortisol curve, cortisol is your stress hormone, but it's also a hormone that kind of helps with your day-to-day function if functioning properly. So typically we sort of see a peak 2 hours after waking. That's when people should sort of feel their best.
Mm-hmm.
And then it somewhat sort of declines throughout the day. So I often use the questions like, when is your peak of energy in the day? When do you feel your best? That can sort of be a marker to tell me when someone's having a cortisol peak or if they're having a cortisol peak at all.
Yeah.
Because in people with severe dysfunction, they might not have a peak at all. So that can help. Or if someone's getting like a second wind in the evening, like they're like, yeah, I don't function all day long, but then I'm a night owl and I can't fall asleep. Well, then it's like, ooh, cortisol's off. We got to do something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sleep is a huge part of that sort of fundamental assessment that you're looking at. You also talked about when you mentioned the word panel. I imagine you mean blood work panel and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we look comprehensively at like the preventative measures that your GP would look at. So, blood counts, liver function, kidney function, cholesterol, things like that. But we also do look at hormone panels, including cortisol. Although cortisol's not a great blood marker because it captures a period of time. And when people, like, let's say you have a stressful morning, you get to the lab, they poke you multiple times, this number can be very affected by
Mm.
circumstance. Other things, yeah, we do test testosterone in men. We will test potentially like sex hormone binding globulin. That tells us how well your testosterone is functioning in your body. So, sex hormone binding globulin is a protein that floats around in your blood and it binds testosterone. And so, if you have high levels of sex hormone binding globulin, this can indicate that even though you may have an adequate testosterone level, you may not have enough free testosterone to be well functioning.
Okay.
And then if it's low, that can tell us that also same thing, like you're having more effect from your testosterone. But we really want it to be in the middle.
Mm.
That's kind of the thing. Like hormones, I joke, they're like Goldilocks. It's like we never want them too low, we never want them too high. We want to find your perfect middle, and that middle perfect spot is different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with hormones, are you like, how often do you feel like you have to assess those levels to kind of get a good sense of what's really happening there, and whether there is some sort of dysfunction happening? Like, can it be seen in one test? Does it have to be multiple tests? What does that sort of track look like?
Yeah, so the guidelines, the conventional medicine guidelines, do recommend testing it twice to
Okay.
really know if it's low on two separate days. Now, that's often what we will do as well. I typically in the first year of seeing people, we do labs every 3 months approximately.
Mm-hmm.
But what we include on that lab panel is dependent on the person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then thereafter, once we have someone stabilized, we're looking yearly or every 6 months approximately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there tests in your blood work panel that you will typically do that you find maybe a GP wouldn't look at, and what do you think makes up for that difference?
So I am a big fan of DHEA. I really
Mm-hmm.
love DHEA because it tells me what cortisol trends are. And DHEA in the hormone cascade is a precursor hormone to testosterone and estrogen in both men and women.
Okay.
So that's a very easy place to intervene when, if DHEA is low, we can supplement DHEA to help with stress regulation and relaxation, but it also helps to sort of feed those, like positively feed estrogen and testosterone. I do find it feeds testosterone more so.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, so DHEA is one marker that you would look at that maybe a GP wouldn't look at?
Yes.
Okay, and why wouldn't a GP consider that? Like everything that you just explained to me sounds reasonable. Like is there a reason why maybe that's not something that's front of mind for them or
Yeah, maybe because they're not really looking at, like, sometimes they don't check these measures because maybe they don't know how to read them properly.
okay.
Oftentimes, who's testing the DHEA frequently is the endocrinologist. That's more
Mm,
something that endocrinology looks at.
okay.
And it's really for them in that circumstance, we're looking specifically for like Addison's or Cushing diseases. So
Mm,
these ones are like overt diseases with cortisol and cortisol production. So one is an overproduction of cortisol, the other is an underproduction of cortisol.
got it.
And both can be quite debilitating and life-threatening.
Yeah.
And so in conventional medicine, they don't typically look at DHEA unless they're suspecting one of these two conditions.
Yeah. On the rest of the panels, are there any major differences that you'd see?
Yeah, nutrient levels. I do like to look at selenium and zinc if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Selenium and zinc are very important for thyroid function as well as immune system health and testosterone production.
Mm-hmm.
So I do try to look at those. And quite often I find selenium is low because it's not something that's really readily available in our food other than eating Brazil
I
nuts.
was
But
gonna say that's
again,
yeah.
yeah, you don't know what you're going to get for Brazil nuts. Like if you pick up something from the store, is it going to be high quality?
Mm,
Does it have the same amount of selenium as another package of Brazil nuts? We
mm-hmm.
really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, zinc, selenium, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, how do you help patients navigate the situation then where, they don't have you hope to kind of do that kind of blood work because I'm like you said, some nurse practitioners also may not necessarily request a more comprehensive panel. So how do we support those folks who are stuck? Like they want to get that comprehensive testing, their GP is just not open to it. Is there something that can be done, or would you suggest that if they can find somebody else to go and do that? Or is there stuff that they can safely just start to do on their own that they can, yeah, I don't know. How do we help people who, because I think there are a lot of people who are probably stuck.
Yeah. So there's a variety of things you can do. I do find that a lot of insurance plans in Alberta, if you have insurance through your work, do cover naturopathic visits. And so that can be a really helpful place to start. A lot of the naturopaths that I know do a really nice basic panel of lab work as well. It's more comprehensive, I find. And so I would say see a naturopath, see a nurse practitioner that does what I do, so more functional, health based, or really, yeah, fundamentals. Like keep it very, very simple. So make sure that you're sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. For men, it could be more on the 8 side. For women, typically we recommend a little bit more. Other things like how many fruits and vegetables are you getting in a day? that is supremely important for both fiber, nutrients. Like there are so many things in fruits and vegetables that are so supportive to your health. Protein. We recommend a high amount of protein, and people are often like, I'm eating enough protein, but I tell them track for a couple of days. Like you may think that you're eating enough, but you need to know. Like it's nice to track it to know for sure. Like, are you getting enough? And so typically, like when we're focusing on optimal health, we're aiming for like zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So let's say, you weigh 190 pounds. If, if you're within the BMI limits, you should be eating 190 grams of protein in a day.
So it's not grams per kilogram then? It's grams per pound?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And of course, if you're not extremely active, that level goes down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But if people are, are lifting weights, moving their bodies properly, I recommend a higher level. Because lifting weights causes muscle damage, and we need the amino acids from proteins to repair those muscles.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you consider the genetic state of anybody, like in your test, ever? Like, do you ever go and seek out genetic testing for patients? Is that something you're interested in? I did an episode on a previous podcast where this professor had developed nutrigenomics testing, which is essentially genetic testing to see how people metabolize, or whether their genetics predispose them to whether they can metabolize certain nutrients or not. Now, that's just one example of testing, but yeah, I don't know. I was just curious about, do you just look at sort of I guess the environmental nurture side of things, or do you also try to take into account, if you have the time and runway, the genetic makeup and that sort of thing as well?
You know what? Ethically, I struggle with genetics a little bit because I do not believe that genes are your destiny. So I have a hard time, like when patients say, I want to do some genetic testing, there are some things that I agree with, like FHR, knowing like how you metabolize B vitamins can be very helpful. But I really don't advocate for it, because let's say you get bad news from it that says like, oh, you're going to get there, you have a higher risk of like cancer or Alzheimer's, dementia. Like that's not your destiny. Just because that genetic marker is there, typically our genetic markers need an environmental trigger. So I'm not a big fan. I feel like we're so early to it that we don't understand it well enough for it to be extremely applicable. But yeah, there are certain circumstances. Like I know in the mental health world, they've started to do genetic testing on people to see how they would react to different mental health medications. I find that's quite interesting. But also genetic testing is very expensive.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel like we're overcomplicating simple things.
Sure. Are there any other health tests that you kind of, not that you're saying you're raising a red flag to some of these genetic tests, but are there other types of health testing that you find patients will go and do themselves that you're like, don't know if that's really making a difference, or anything that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so a really popular topic right now is testing for parasites.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And so we do offer, there is advanced stool testing in Alberta that you can pay for. It's quite expensive. It's between $800 to $1,000. And I've ran these tests on people because they've insisted upon it. And it's like, okay, sure, let's do it. And I love reading them. I really do. I love those tests. But I'm like, for the money that you're going to spend, oftentimes the results are the same. Eat more fiber, eat more fruits and vegetables to make your microbiome more diverse is frequently what I see on those testing. And I'm like, we don't need an $800 to $1,000 test to know that, like, if you eat well, your microbiome is going to be healthy.
Right.
Yes. And yeah, I have not seen any of like the expensive parasite testing panel that is much greater than the Alberta Health Services one that's offered. I have not seen it come up positive. So I don't really believe in doing parasite cleanses. Like that's one thing that they're pushing really hard right now in, I find in social media. I don't believe in doing that because along with potentially getting rid of some parasite that may be there or may not be there, you're also could be damaging your healthy microbiome.
Hmm.
And so in my mind, I just don't know if it's worth it.
Actually, even I must be so out of touch. So what's driving this trend for people as far as wanting to get parasitic testing?
Yeah,
Like,
it must be on a podcast or social media or something because I probably
yeah.
get questions about parasites at least daily. So,
Okay,
yeah.
and what's the concern from people? Is they just feel like there's something like are they feeling generally are they generally healthy and they're just wanting to do some preventative stuff, or they're just maybe thinking that these parasites might exist and they're affecting their state of health? Like what's the mindset or mentality here?
Yeah, so oftentimes people are having symptoms like fatigue or digestive concerns, and they're like, oh, it could be a parasite because there's symptoms often overlap between many conditions. And so, like, if you're having fatigue, it may not be a parasite, but people think that, oh, if I do a parasite cleanse, it will fix this for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's an easy fix. But in my world, it's never usually that easy. We are
Mm.
very dynamic individuals, and it's often not just one thing that improves fatigue. It's usually many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with digestive health. It's not just a parasite cleanse that's going to make you all better. It's, talking about, yeah, what are your stress levels like? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? What's your hydration?
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea about that kind of test. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
Any kind of weird? I shouldn't say weird. Sorry, that was a judgment. That was a judgment comment. Is there any? Are there any other kind of trendy tests or things that are on people's minds that you're seeing come up on a daily basis?
NAD.
I have no
Yeah.
idea what that is.
NAD is a supplement that people can get IV. That's another one. It's quite expensive, I find. And again, I just have not seen
What
like
does it
in
stand
my
for? NAD.
NAD. Oh, it's a nutrient. I'm sorry,
Okay,
I can't
that's
tell
okay.
you
No,
exactly.
no worries. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like goes along with B3. And so in my mind, it's like people have spent a lot of money on NAD and just have not seen the benefit. And a lot of these, again, it must have been pushed by a podcaster because I've been getting lots of questions about NAD lately as well. And again, these things aren't going to work if you don't have the foundational things in place.
Yeah. The things that you probably hear, hey, all the time, like just from people like, I heard this thing, I want to try this thing, and that must be difficult to kind of, push back or challenge or I don't know, or maybe you're up for the challenge, I don't know, but
Fairly open minded. So
yeah,
I'm like, you
yeah,
know what? If you really think that, like, and I believe that people should trust themselves,
hmm,
but also like what's coming from yourself and what's coming from marketing that's being thrown at you all day long. But if they want to try it, I'm like, okay, as long as there's no negatives downside, you can absolutely try it. But I will tell people, like, in my experience with seeing other people do this, they haven't had a huge benefit. But there are some people that do. So again, it's one of those things. Same with like B vitamin injections. I've seen, or even any IVs, I've seen mixed responses.
hmm,
Some people have really good benefits from it, and then other people don't respond as well as they had hoped.
hmm.
So we're all really different.
As you know, my wife was a naturopathic doctor, and she used to do IV treatment, and I got a Myers cocktail. I don't know if you know what that is, but high dose of vitamin C or whatever. And she did say like people respond differently, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna feel all energized. I got that Myers cocktail. I had the best sleep like hours after it. I thought it
Yeah.
was gonna be like just jumping all over the walls, but I definitely had a different reaction to it for sure.
Yeah.
So,
And injectable vitamins and IVs truly have their place. Like
yeah,
I will have some patients where they just don't absorb nutrients as well as other people. And so I will recommend it to them. I will say, hey,
yeah,
I do think you would benefit from this.
yeah, yeah,
But does everybody need one? Not necessarily.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You said something about you really want people to trust themselves,
Hmm.
what they're, and how do you, how do we help people who, I'm just thinking about, let's just focus on, again, men who are, trying to get back into feeling good in their own skin. Um, but they're finding that, what used to work or what they thought was, if I do these things and I'll bounce back, it's not no longer, they're feeling like they're no longer in tune with themselves anymore, right? Because it's like been so far gone now, right? Since they're what they felt like maybe were their peak days, right? And so
Hmm.
it's like, they're not recovering as fast, or things are not, the food that they're typically used to isn't sitting as well anymore. Like everything is just change, making them having to recalibrate how they reflect on themselves, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
How do we help those folks feel like they can understand themselves again in a really accurate way? Because it's like their health has shifted so much that they're no longer that same state that they used to be, but they thought they were in. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I know it sounds a little bit extreme, but oftentimes I use, and in functional medicine, this is one of our primary things we do, is put people through like a comprehensive elimination diet. And I often find that's a great way for people to start listening to their bodies again. Because it's so often we've been having these long term symptoms that we just keep pushing down or writing off. Or, we've gone to like see our healthcare provider and they're like, oh, your lab work is normal. Don't worry about it. Uh, and so, yeah, we're getting a lot of mixed messaging. And so I like the elimination diet because it gets people listening to themselves again. And when you do a comprehensive elimination diet and then you reintroduce the foods again, you have to pay attention to all systems. It's not just digestive health, it's memory, it's energy, it's sleep, it's skin health. What you eat can affect your body so much. And I find that's a really good tool in my practice for patients to learn to start listening to themselves again.
Mm, mm-hmm.
But I do have to say I'm quite blessed because the patients that I see are typically very in tune with themselves. They're like, I know something's wrong. I'm not feeling right. Help me navigate through this.
Well, for you, I guess, like folks are probably actively seeking your care, right, and your
Yes.
your support, and so they're already at that level of you have to be somewhat aware to kind of get to you, right? You're yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. I know that's how I felt when I came to you for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do also find there's the other end of the spectrum where we sometimes have very unrealistic expectations of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think we were meant to work 80 hours a week and run
Mm,
on 6 hours of sleep. Like, sometimes, like, I'm often speaking with, people who are juggling multiple things in a day, and they say, my brain's just not working as well as it could.
yeah,
And I just think sometimes we're intaking too much information. We're constantly being bombarded by information. Like, it's not all going to stick.
yeah,
So we really have to prioritize what we're paying attention to.
yeah. I love that. Let's just play a scenario here, Hope. So let's just say you're sitting on someone's shoulder, you're advising them in an earpiece or something like that, and they're here's somebody who wants to reconnect with their health again. They're tired of feeling the way they are, so they can go into their GP or nurse practitioner's office or whoever. How do you start advising them on the kind of okay, so let's say they that practitioner has them go through comprehensive blood work panel, whatever. They ask them all these questions. How do you advise them on the kind of questions to maybe ask or the things that they should probably should inquire about?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a tough question. Um,
Yeah, I think that, some might be more inquisitive than others. They might know that, okay, I want to know about my iron, or I want to know about
mhm.
this. Some people just don't even know, right? And
Yeah.
so then they're just relying on that practitioner to feed them the information. But if that practitioner is not giving them all the goods, or they just say, oh, everything looks normal, um, or hopefully they have a practitioner who walks through every single thing and helps them understand that. But that's just not the case. So let's just say they're facing a practitioner who just, is going through the bare bones of things and focusing on the things that are really, they see are maybe abnormal results or something like that. But, this person wants to know more. So how do we advise them on that?
Yeah. So I would say see somebody who can really look at you holistically, if possible. I find it's very hard to just break people into pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have one abnormal lab value. There's so much to it, right? Like I said, it's never just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I were advising people where to start after getting some news like that, is like start with the thing that might be easiest to change that seems sustainable. So let's say that's, I could add a little bit of fiber in my day,
Mm-hmm.
specifically for cholesterol. I find that's one of more frequent abnormal levels that we see, that I find has typically easier fixes, like increase your fiber. And if you're unsure if you're getting enough fiber or if you've gotten an abnormal cholesterol level, track what you eat for fiber
Mm-hmm.
in a day because 80% of the time it's not enough. And we may think it's enough. We're eating all the vegetables, but there are some vegetables that don't have a ton of fiber,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
not the right kind of fiber. So I would recommend, yeah, like looking at those things, like track your fiber in a day. That's a very simple fix. You can either take it in a supplement form, you can take more like seeds. So I really like hemp, chia, flax, all of those things. I typically recommend if you're going to go with flax, try to get organic, because the reviews are mixed. There are some studies that say it can negatively affect estrogen levels in men and women, but if done properly, can positively
Mm.
affect estrogen levels in men and women. Um, but yeah, it's stuff like that. Looking at like a comprehensive thyroid panel is important, but it is very hard to come by. Um, And then iron as well. Iron is huge, for energy, fatigue, mental health, mental clarity, brain function. I find that it's important. And it's one of those things we unfortunately undertreat too often. Like just because, and this is something that my practice does differently than other places. We look more at the labs like just because it's abnormal does not mean it's optimal. We look at your value and we correlate it with the symptoms that you're experiencing and say, hey, the range for iron is 20 to 500 in men. Your iron's at 50. And typically in a man and a woman, that's not necessarily enough. We want you
Mm-hmm.
to be a little bit higher. So I will talk to people and say, increase your intake of iron rich foods, which also helps to improve your protein intake quite
Mm-hmm.
frequently. So, although there are some vegetables that you can get iron from as well, like your
Yeah.
leafy greens. Um, so yeah,
I
things like
like what you
that.
said. I like what you said there about, because I think that's something that people don't always realize is that when they get their blood work done, in some cases, you might fall within the range, right? The what's that range called? Like, is it just the ideal health? I don't know.
Yeah, it's based on like averages.
Okay.
And we know that there are, standard deviations,
Yeah.
right? There are
Yeah.
people that don't necessarily fall within the averages.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah. So if you fall within the range, I think for I think I would say it's safe to say many practitioners would be like, you're fine, right?
Hmm.
But then when
Or
you're
you won't
saying
even get a call.
you want to go get a call,
No,
exactly.
no,
Uh,
it all came back normal. You won't
yeah.
even get a call.
But then what you're saying is that in some cases, like for iron, for instance, there are, if you want to thrive or be a little bit more optimal, you might want to be at a slightly different rate, a different level or something like that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It's one of those things that's worth trying in order to see, does it improve how you're feeling? Because oftentimes, like I said, fatigue is not just one thing. That's another thing that sometimes disappoints people
Mm-hmm.
is they will get their iron up and they won't feel any better. And it's like, okay, it wasn't necessarily iron, but iron is going to help with other things. So it's not a bad thing to improve it. Although we need to caveat this with your iron can be too high as well. So I don't want everybody going out and taking iron. There is get that tested before you decide to take iron for sure. But yeah, working within those range and seeing trends. So I will often look back and see like, where was your iron? And is it better? Is it worse?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it better or worse? And then we will have that conversation.
Is there a resource somewhere that can help people with, like, again, if their practitioner is just like, they're within the healthy range, nothing to talk about here, but maybe they're not in that at the optimal level. Is there a resource out there for people that they can be like, okay, generally my iron should be here, or generally whatever the other test might be, this is the optimal level that it should, like, is there any resource for people to easily access, or would you even caution against that? Or I think I'm feeling stuck right now. I don't know if you can sense I'm feeling stuck with, like, how do we help those people who don't have that kind of, we're not you,
support.
or don't have that support, but they're really gung-ho about like, hey, I really want to understand my full body of health here, and I want to be in that optimal, I want to feel great again, I want to thrive, but I just I'm not getting that support, and so I'm just struggling with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there isn't. And each practitioner, like you will get different, like if you listen to a podcast that's based out of the States, their lab values and the way they measure things are different than what we do here.
Mm-hmm.
So it is hard to get like a consistent consensus, and different providers treat different things differently. Again, I would circle back to like, you don't necessarily need those lab values to make positive changes, right? Basics,
Good takeaway.
sleep, stress, eat well, protein if you're not vegan vegetarian, right? But even if you are vegan vegetarian, finding a way to get adequate protein is important. Yeah, and look at your quality of life and what fills you up, because that's frequently like people are adding more and more and more and more and more things to their plate that are draining them rather than filling them up. And then it makes it unsustainable when you're drained. So finding ways to improve your quality of life that fill you up and make you want to, like, create a positive feedback loop that make you want to keep doing it. Like sleep is a very positive feedback loop. Like when you sleep well, you feel great. And that's, I find, makes people want to prioritize sleep.
Mm-hmm. That's a great takeaway. I think that's a great way to sort of wrap this up. Is there anything else that you would want to advise, this mock patient on who's just trying to get back into feeling good again? Is there anything else any other takeaways for you?
Yeah, I guess one thing we didn't we touched on a little bit was stress. But stress management is another really big thing that we kind of put to the wayside. So finding ways to manage your stress, again, that fill your cup up and feel sustainable for you. And for some people that is meditation and deep breathing. For other people, like men in particular, maybe they do enjoy like cold plunging or cold showers. Finding a way to manage your stress that works for you. And no, it does not have to be meditation for 2 hours a day. It can be just a 5-minute deep breathing exercise before bed. Before bed is a great time to sort of implement some of these stress reduction strategies, because you kind of get two benefits for one. You reduce your stress and you improve your sleep. So that's one thing that I just want to make sure we highlight, because like I've said before, hormones are made from the same building blocks. And if your body is prioritizing making more cortisol or stress hormone, it's going to under prioritize those other hormones, your sex hormones. And those can be the one that controls some of your vitality. And so I would say like stress is a big one, but often, like I said, very intertwined with our day-to-day habits and lifestyles and can be hard to change.
Do you think, one last question, do you think on the topic of hormones, testosterone, we started talking about that at the beginning. Do you think that we've kind of gone too far down the pendulum and we're talking way too much about it? Or we're actually not even quite there. We're actually just, people are skimming the surface now. It's good that they're talking about it, and especially men who may have not even considered hormones in the past. Yeah, I don't even know actually. Maybe the everyday man maybe isn't. It's not even on the radar. I have no idea. And maybe it's just those folks who are kind of seeking that alpha culture who are really into it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess part of me just wonders whether we swung a little bit too far and we're like thinking about it way too much when maybe we maybe shouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that the conversations are being had because I do think testosterone is a very powerful influence on a man's life. But again, we sometimes oversimplify it when it's like you go to a testosterone replacement clinic, they say, yep, your testosterone's low, here's some testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
I've had very mixed sort of responses to testosterone. Some men take it and they feel great. And then other men, they're taking extremely high doses and they feel no better. And so I like that we're having these conversations because I do think it's a piece in the health picture. Mm-hmm. But I don't think testosterone replacement is the be all end all for men. Mm-hmm. Again, like I said, if you don't have the fundamentals in place, testosterone may work in the beginning, but it's not going to be effective forever.
Cool. This has been a great conversation. Any final words from you, Hope? Or
no, that's everything I think from me. I would just recommend start where you are and start with what seems, like I said, something that is sustainable for you. It doesn't have to be like going to working out 5 days a week in the gym when you haven't been working out at all. It can be just starting very easy with maybe 20 minutes of weights or a 20-minute walk or some stress management. It doesn't have to be these big drastic life changes that lead to results. It can be just really small things. And oftentimes starting small is a good way to build the habit and prevent yourself from getting injured.
Yeah, so, that would be helpful for sure.
Yes.
Cool.
So kind of analyze what you're doing and start where you are. And it does not have to be complicated and it does not have to be expensive.
Great words. Mm-hmm. Hope, I really appreciate you today. This has been a fantastic conversation. Everyone check out Hope's website. I'll put that in the show notes later on. And you're welcome back anytime, Hope, to have future conversations. I think people are going to get a lot out of this in terms of just how do they assess the state of their health right from the beginning, the things to consider, focusing on those fundamentals, like you said, are so key. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did.
Yes, thank you for having me. I would be happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like, subscribe, do those wonderful things, and we'll see you on the next episode.